I'm sorry I got your son wet. My inhaler's almost empty. I can't afford another one. Those were the first words a 9-year-old girl said to the biker, whose son she'd just saved from drowning. She'd jumped into 63-degree water despite severe asthma. She'd pulled a 5-year-old to safety while her own lungs were seizing. And then she apologized. For 11 months, her family had been falling through the cracks. Insurance denials, medical bills at 280% markup, an eviction notice for an apartment they couldn't afford to lose. What happened in the next 18 minutes would bring 215 Hells Angels to a small Montana town and prove that sometimes the system doesn't just fail people. It's designed to crush them. This is Sophie's story, and it will restore your faith in the people society overlooks. If that apology broke your heart, hit subscribe and comment, "I stand with Sophie," because what 215 bikers did next will prove that when the system fails, brotherhood doesn't. Enjoy the story. I'm sorry I got your son wet. My inhaler's almost empty. I can't afford another one. Those 16 words, spoken by a soaking wet child who'd just risked her life to save a stranger's son, would change everything Marcus Dalton thought he knew about courage. But let's back up 6 minutes. 6 minutes before the apology that shouldn't exist. 6 minutes before a 9-year-old girl taught a combat veteran what real bravery looks like. It was Saturday, July 17th, 2:47 in the afternoon at Pine Ridge Lake and Recreation Area in Clearwater, Montana. 89 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, the kind of perfect summer day that fills a community lake with families. Approximately 70 people scattered across the grass and shoreline. Children's laughter mixed with splashing water. A lifeguard's whistle. Country music drifting from someone's radio. The smell of sunscreen and grilled hot dogs from the concession stand. Sophie Marie Brennan sat on the grassy hill 40 feet from the water's edge, catching her breath. The walk from her apartment at 2914 Cottonwood Drive had taken 35 minutes. 1.2 miles. For most 9-year-olds, that's a 15-minute walk. But Sophie had to stop 7 times. Stop and count 1, 2, 3, 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 out. Her doctor had taught her that. When your lungs don't want to cooperate, Sophie, you make them. You count and you breathe with purpose. She wore a faded purple hoodie despite the heat, the Girl Scouts logo peeling off the front, a reminder of better times when her family could afford the membership fee. White sneakers held together with duct tape on the left shoe, the sole flapping with every step. Pink swimming goggles hung around her neck from before. Before the hospital. Before the bills. Before everything changed 11 months ago. She wasn't supposed to be swimming. Doctor's orders were clear. Avoid cold water and strenuous activity. With your condition, cold water could trigger a severe respiratory episode. But she wasn't here to swim. She was here to watch. To remember what normal looked like. 90 feet away, Marcus Reaper Dalton sat on a bench near his Harley-Davidson, eating a gas station sandwich. 6'4", 250 pounds of tattooed muscle wrapped in black leather and Hells Angels patches. The kind of man most people at a family lake give a wide berth to. And they did. Families had quietly moved to the opposite side of the park when he arrived. The teenage lifeguards avoided eye contact. 2 church ladies near the parking lot had whispered loud enough for Marcus to hear. "What's a biker doing at a family lake?" What they didn't know, Marcus Dalton, Marine Corps veteran, Iraq, 2004 to 2005, spent every Tuesday volunteering at the VA hospital in Billings. He'd helped 14 homeless veterans find housing in the past year. He'd learned to braid his daughter's hair before his ex-wife left. Now he had full custody of his 5-year-old son, Tyler, who was playing in the shallow water 30 feet from shore. Tyler Dalton, 5 years old, blonde hair, Spider-Man swim trunks, wearing inflatable arm floaties because he was still learning to swim. The water was 2.5 feet deep where he played. Safe. His dad could see him from the bench. The lifeguards were 70 feet away, technically watching. Everything was fine. Until it wasn't. The valve on Tyler's left floaty gave out. Defective. The kind of manufacturing flaw that leads to recalls 6 months too late. The floaty deflated. Tyler, who'd been confidently splashing, suddenly lost buoyancy. He went under. 3 people saw it happen in that first second. The 2 teenage lifeguards, 17 and 16 years old, who were scrolling through their phones. Marcus, who dropped his sandwich and started running, and Sophie Brennan, who had exactly 1.3 seconds to make an impossible choice. She knew the rules. Doctor's rules. Sophie, cold water can cause your airways to seize. It's called cold-induced bronchospasm. With your asthma, it could stop your breathing completely. She knew her inhaler was in her backpack, 20 feet away. She knew she had 11 days of medicine left. 11 days until the bottle ran empty and her family couldn't afford the $340 refill. She knew all of that. And she jumped anyway. The water temperature was 63 degrees. Sophie's body hit it fully clothed. Purple hoodie, jeans, duct-taped sneakers. The cold punched her lungs immediately. Every muscle in her chest wanted to seize. But Tyler was 15 feet away, under the surface, and the lifeguards weren't moving. Witnesses would later describe what they saw. A small girl jumped from the grassy area. She swam toward the boy. It took maybe 40 seconds. 40 seconds. It's 63-degree water with stage 3 asthma. Sophie reached Tyler. He was thrashing, panicking, but conscious. She grabbed him under the arms, the way she'd learned in Girl Scouts before they had to drop out. She pulled him toward the shore, toward the shallow water where Marcus was now splashing through, having covered 90 feet in 11 seconds. Tyler's head broke the surface. He coughed, gasped, crying. The most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. Marcus grabbed Tyler, pulled him to the grass, wrapped him in the towel that had been sitting next to his abandoned sandwich. Tyler was coughing water, but breathing. Alive. Then Marcus turned back. The small girl who'd pulled Tyler to safety was now the one struggling. She'd made it to the shallow water, 3 feet deep, but she'd stopped moving. Her arms were wrapped around herself. Her chest was heaving, but no air was going in. Her lips had a faint blue tint that was getting darker. Marcus pulled her from the water, laid her on the grass. She was so small. 4'2", maybe 60 pounds, soaking wet, which she was. Her eyes were wide with panic, the specific terror of someone whose lungs won't obey their brain. "Where's your inhaler?" Marcus asked. Marine training kicked in. Assess. Identify the problem. Fix it. Sophie's hand shot toward a backpack 20 feet away. Marcus grabbed it, dumped it. Books. A notebook with careful handwriting. A small purple inhaler. He held it to her mouth. 4 puffs. Breathe in when I press. 1, 2, 3, 4. 90 seconds passed. The longest 90 seconds of Marcus's life since Fallujah. Slowly, color returned to her face. Her breathing evened. The wheeze remained, but the panic left her eyes. Tyler, wrapped in his towel, crawled over and hugged her. "Thank you for saving me." Sophie looked at Tyler, then at Marcus. Water dripped from her hair onto the grass. The purple hoodie clung to her thin frame. The duct tape on her left shoe had come completely loose, the sole flapping open. And then she said it. "I'm sorry I got your son wet. My inhaler's almost empty. I can't afford another one." Marcus Dalton had been shot at in Fallujah. He'd buried 3 brothers from the club. He'd weathered a divorce, raised a son alone, worn the Hell's Angels patch for 18 years. But this moment, kneeling on grass in front of a 58-pound girl who'd just casually mentioned she was counting down to running out of medicine after saving his son's life, this broke something in him. He took off his leather vest. The one with patches earned over 18 years of brotherhood. He draped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her completely. Then he lowered himself to one knee, making his 6'4" frame smaller, meeting her at eye level. "You saved my son's life. You don't apologize for that. Ever. What's your name, kiddo?" "Sophie Brennan. I live at Cottonwood Apartments, Unit 7. I walked here because we don't have a car anymore. My mom sold it to pay for my hospital bills. I have asthma." 33 words. Surface admission. But Marcus heard the ones underneath. No car. Hospital bills. Past tense. "I wasn't supposed to swim," Sophie continued. Her voice was soft, breathy. Every sentence had a pause where she pulled in air. "My doctor said cold water could make my breathing stop. But your son needed help and the lifeguards weren't looking. My inhaler costs $340 and we only have enough for 11 more days. After that, I don't know what happens." 11 days. Marcus felt Tyler's small hand slip into his. His son was alive because of this kid. And she was counting down to day 0. "My landlord, Mr. Thompson, he's kicking us out in 19 days, Sophie said. She looked down at the grass, water still dripping from her hair. "I heard him on the phone yesterday when I walked past his office. He said, 'The sick kid's family can't pay, so I'm getting them out by August 1st. I got someone paying more.' My mom cried all night. She thinks I don't know we're about to be homeless, but I do. I know we can't afford my medicine and rent. I know she has to choose." 78 words. The bombshell. The impossible math of poverty that a 9-year-old shouldn't be able to calculate. 11 days until medicine runs out. 19 days until eviction. 28 days until homelessness. Marcus placed both hands on Sophie's narrow shoulders. Careful. Gentle. She was so small his hands nearly spanned her back. "Listen to me, Sophie. You saved Tyler. That means you're family now. And we protect family. You're not getting kicked out. Your medicine doesn't run out. And that landlord, he's about to learn what happens when you mess with someone a Hell's Angel calls family." He extended his right hand, the one with the Hell's Angel's death head tattooed across the knuckles, the symbol people cross streets to avoid. Sophie looked at the tattoo. Then she placed her small, wet hand in his. "I'm making you a promise right now, with Tyler as witness. You will be safe. Your family will be safe. 11 days? 19 days? Those countdowns just stopped. Do you believe me?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears. The first emotion beyond fear and exhaustion that Marcus had seen cross her face. "I want to, but grown-ups make promises they can't keep. My dad promised we'd be okay. The church promised they'd help. The insurance company promised they'd cover my hospital. Everyone promises. I'm not everyone, Marcus said. And Hell's Angels don't break promises to family. Tyler wrapped his arms around Sophie, the towel still covering him. He means it. My dad never lies. If you believe that children shouldn't have to be heroes before adults step up to protect them, comment, "I stand with Sophie," and subscribe, because what happens in the next 48 hours will prove that sometimes the scariest-looking people are exactly the protectors we need. Marcus walked Sophie home. Tyler rode on his shoulders, still wrapped in the towel, refusing to let go of Sophie's hand. The walk back to 2914 Cottonwood Drive took 23 minutes. Sophie had to stop 6 times to catch her breath. Each time, Marcus and Tyler stopped without comment, without rushing her, without making her feel like a burden. When they reached Cottonwood Apartments, a 12-unit complex with peeling paint and sagging balconies, Sophie pointed to the second-floor unit. "That's mine, Unit 7. "Can I meet your parents?" Marcus asked. "Mom's home. Dad's working. He works at Anderson's Hardware, but they only give him 32 hours a week, so they don't have to provide insurance." Lisa Brennan opened the door. 36 years old. Former registered nurse. Now unemployed because someone had to stay home with Sophie full-time. She saw her daughter soaking wet, standing next to a 6'4" biker covered in tattoos, and Marcus watched her face cycle through confusion, fear, and then recognition as Sophie said, "Mom, this is Marcus. His son was struggling in the water and I helped. Then I couldn't breathe and he helped me. He knows about the eviction." Lisa's face crumpled. "Sophie, you weren't supposed to—" She stopped, looked at Marcus. "Thank you for helping her, and thank you for whatever your son needed. I'm sorry we can't—" "Mrs. Brennan," Marcus interrupted. "Your daughter saved Tyler's life. We need to talk. Can I come in?" 10 minutes later, Marcus sat at a small kitchen table in Unit 7 at Cottonwood Apartments. The apartment was painfully clean. 1 bedroom. Sophie's drawings covered the refrigerator. A couch in the living room with a folded blanket and pillow. Sophie's bed. Medical bills stacked on the counter, the top one stamped "Final Notice" in red. Lisa Brennan made tea with shaking hands and told Marcus everything. The ICU stay 11 months ago. 6 days. $87,420. Insurance covered $12,100. The family's responsibility, $75,320. Lisa had to quit her nursing job to care for Sophie full-time. They sold their car, cashed out the 401k early, moved from a 3-bedroom townhouse to this 1-bedroom. They'd paid down $15,400. They still owed $59,920. The payment plan demanded $2,100 a month. Tom Brennan's hardware store job paid $38,500 a year. After taxes, rent, utilities, and food, there was nothing left for medicine, let alone the medical debt. They'd applied for Medicaid. Denied. The family made $205 more per year than the cutoff. They'd applied for the hospital's charity care program. Denied. They made $3,500 more than the limit. The church had given them $500 once. Board meeting minutes, which Lisa had requested, stated, "The Brennans need to learn financial responsibility, not dependence on charity." And now, Gerald Thompson, the landlord, was evicting them. 19 days. He had someone willing to pay $1,275 a month for a unit that currently rented for $950. So, we have 2 countdowns. Lisa said, her voice hollow. 11 days until Sophie's medicine runs out. 19 days until we lose our apartment. And I have $247 in checking. I have to choose between medication that keeps my daughter breathing and rent that keeps us housed. What kind of mother has to make that choice? Marcus looked at Sophie, who sat on the couch holding Tyler's hand. They were comparing drawings Sophie had made. Tyler was saying something about her being a good artist. The kind of mother who didn't fail, Marcus said. The kind the system failed. He pulled out his phone. Dialed. 1 ring, 2. Reaper. The voice on the other end was gravelly, older. This was Thomas Bear Sullivan, 67 years old, club founder, Vietnam veteran, the man who'd started the Montana Hells Angels chapter in 1982. Bear, it's Marcus. What's going on? Marcus looked at Sophie, at Lisa, at Tyler, who was now showing Sophie his favorite Hot Wheels car. I need every brother within 100 miles at the clubhouse. Tonight, 8 p.m. Brief pause. Marcus counted 3 seconds of silence. What happened? A 9-year-old girl with severe asthma jumped into a 63-degree lake to save Tyler's life. Then she apologized for using her inhaler because her family can't afford a refill. They've got 11 days of medicine, 19 days until eviction, and a system that crushed them for having the audacity to keep their sick kid alive. We're not waiting for the system to fix this one. Say no more. We're coming. The line went dead. And that was it. No questions about proof or evidence. No concerns about legal complications. Just commitment. Because that's what brotherhood meant. Marcus looked at Lisa. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Lisa looked at her daughter, at the medical bills, at the eviction notice taped to the refrigerator, at the calendar where she'd been marking off days. Do I have a choice? Yeah, Marcus said. You do. You can let me help, or you can do this alone. But if you let me help, things are about to get loud, visible. There's going to be a lot of motorcycles, a lot of scary-looking men. But I promise you, not one of them will harm you or Sophie. They're coming to help. Sophie spoke from the couch. Mom, he kept his promise. He said I was safe at the lake. I was. Lisa Brennan nodded. Okay. What do I need to do? Make me a list, Marcus said. Every system failure, every denial, every person who saw your daughter struggling and did nothing. Every document you have. I need names, dates, and dollar amounts. We've got 48 hours to build a case and 19 days to fix a system. By 8 p.m., 93 motorcycles filled the gravel lot outside the Hells Angels clubhouse, 14 miles outside Clearwater. More were coming. The chapters were mobilizing. Marcus stood in front of the assembled brothers. These were men ranging from 29 to 67 years old. Ex-military, ex-cops, mechanics, teachers, construction workers. Men who society looked at and saw danger. Men who saw a 9-year-old girl counting down to homelessness and saw something worth protecting. Marcus told them Sophie's story. Every detail. The lake. The apology. The 11 days. The 19 days. The impossible choice between breathing and shelter. When he finished, the room was silent. Bear Sullivan stood, the elder statesman, the moral compass. Brothers, I've been wearing this patch for 42 years. I've buried wives, buried children, buried brothers. I thought I'd seen every flavor of evil this world serves up. But this, He gestured to the documents Marcus had spread on the table. Insurance denial letters, eviction notices, medical bills with 300% markups. This is the kind of evil that wears a suit, the kind that hides behind policy, the kind that profits from crushing people who did nothing wrong except have a sick kid and not enough money. He looked around the room. Sophie Brennan saved Reaper's son. She's 9 years old. She has stage 3 asthma. And she apologized for breathing because breathing costs money she doesn't have. Show of hands. Who's in? The room went quiet. 23 men, all wearing their cuts, all waiting. Bear looked around the table. All in favor? For a moment, nothing. Just the ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant sound of engines idling outside. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single dissenting voice. 93 men voting unanimously to help a family they'd never met. Bear nodded once. Then let's get to work. Vincent Ace Torres stood, 48 years old, former Army combat medic, 6 tours in Afghanistan. I'll handle the medical. Sophie needs a specialist, new prescriptions, and a 6-month supply of her controller medication. I've got contacts at the VA who owe me favors. Give me 24 hours. Marcus Kane, road name Shepard, stood next. 52 years old, retired Helena police detective, 24 years on the force. I'll investigate the landlord, Thompson, right? Gerald Thompson at Cottonwood Apartments. I want to know how many families he's evicted, how much he's raised rents, and whether he's connected to anyone who should have helped the Brennans, but didn't. David Scholar Park stood. 61 years old, retired high school English teacher. I'll work with the family on long-term stability, budget planning, job search for Mrs. Brennan, school paperwork for Sophie. This isn't just about the next 19 days. It's about making sure they never face this again. Jamie Hawk Rodriguez stood. 29 years old, social media manager. I'll handle visibility. If we're exposing a system, we need witnesses. I'll document everything legally and make sure the internet remembers what happened here. Bear looked at Marcus. Reaper, you're point man. Coordinate. Sophie trusts you. Keep her and her family safe while we work. Marcus nodded. They've got 11 days of medicine and 19 days until eviction. We've got less time than that to build our case because we need a buffer. I want solutions in 7 days, evidence compiled in 5. We move fast, we move quiet, and we move smart. This isn't about revenge, it's about protection and justice. Are we clear? 93 voices. Clear. And now, armed with evidence, brotherhood, and righteous anger, Marcus was about to expose a system that had been crushing families like the Brennans for profit. But first, they needed to gather the witnesses, the people who saw Sophie suffering and did nothing. Day 3. Monday, July 19th. Shepard found his first witness at 9 a.m. Janet Holloway, 63 years old. Lived in Unit 9 at Cottonwood Apartments, directly adjacent to the Brennans. She opened her door to find a massive biker in a leather vest. Her first instinct was fear. Then she saw his eyes. Cop eyes, even 15 years after retirement. Mrs. Holloway, my name is Marcus Kane. I need to talk to you about your neighbors in Unit 7, the Brennans. Janet's face fell. Is Sophie okay? She's alive. Thanks to her own courage and a Hell's Angel she saved from drowning. But no, she's not okay. And you know that, don't you? Janet's hands shook. I don't know what you mean. You share a wall with Unit 7. These apartments were built in The walls are thin. You heard Lisa Brennan crying the night the landlord called about eviction. You heard Sophie coughing. You've seen her walking to the lake, struggling to breathe. You knew, so why didn't you do anything? Janet Holloway sank into her doorframe. I brought casseroles. I smiled at Sophie. I told Lisa I was praying for them. Casseroles and prayers don't pay for medicine. Why didn't you call someone? Social services? The news? Anyone? Because I'm 73 years old and I live on Social Security. Janet's voice cracked. Gerald Thompson owns this building. If I caused trouble, where would I go? I can't afford anywhere else. I know that makes me a coward. I know I should have helped more, but I was scared. Shepard's voice softened. Mrs. Holloway, I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to give you a chance to do the right thing now. Will you testify about what you saw and heard? Testify? To who? To anyone who'll listen. We're building a case, not just against the landlord, against everyone who failed this family. Will you help us now? Janet Holloway nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes. God, yes, I've been carrying this guilt for months. Tell me what you need. Witness 1. Secured. Day 4. Tuesday, July 20th. Hawk found Witness 2 at First Baptist Church, corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue. Pastor Raymond Mitchell, 58 years old. The man who'd denied the Brennans further charity beyond the initial $500. Jamie Rodriguez didn't look like a threat. 29, slim build, friendly smile. He asked to speak with the pastor about a family in need. When Pastor Mitchell agreed, Hawk pulled out his phone and hit record. Pastor Mitchell, I'm here about Lisa and Sophie Brennan. They came to you 11 months ago. Sophie had just gotten out of ICU. The family had $75,000 in medical debt. You gave them $500 and told them to pray harder. Why? Pastor Mitchell's smile faltered. We have procedures. The benevolence fund has limits. Your benevolence fund currently has $47,000 in it. I checked the church's public financial statements. You gave the Brennans $500, less than 2%. Why? The board decided that a 9-year-old girl with asthma wasn't worth helping. I have the meeting minutes. You personally said, the Brennans need to learn financial responsibility. What financial irresponsibility led to a premature birth and a 6-day ICU stay? Pastor Mitchell's face reddened. We can't just hand out money to everyone. You sponsored a mission trip to Costa Rica last month, $18,000. You renovated the fellowship hall, $23,000. But a sick child in your own congregation, $500. And you told her mother to pray harder. It was the board's decision. You're the pastor. You have influence. You chose not to use it. Here's what's going to happen. I'm publishing this conversation online. I'm publishing the board minutes, and I'm publishing every sermon you've given in the past year about helping the needy. Let your congregation decide if you practiced what you preached. Pastor Mitchell went pale. You can't. I already did. It's streaming now. 1,200 people watching. Comments are, well, you can read them yourself. Witness 2. Secured and exposed. Day 5. Wednesday, July 21st. Ace took Sophie to Dr. Sarah Chen, her pulmonologist at Billings Medical Center, 52 miles away. Sophie sat in the back of Ace's pickup truck, Marcus's leather vest still draped over her shoulders. She hadn't taken it off except to sleep. Dr. Chen reviewed Sophie's chart. 47 years old, 12 years practicing. She'd watched Sophie deteriorate over the past 11 months. Every insurance denial. Every missed appointment because the family couldn't afford gas. Every weight loss measurement. Sophie's lost 9 pounds since her ICU stay, Dr. Chen said. She wasn't speaking to Ace or Sophie. She was speaking into a recording Hawk had set up with her permission. 9 pounds on a child who only weighed 67 to start. She's now 58 pounds. Her lung function has decreased by 23%. Without her daily controller medication, she will be hospitalized again within 30 days. The likelihood of survival for a second crisis is significantly lower. Dr. Chen looked at the camera. I wrote 11 letters to her insurance company explaining that Sophie's medication is medically necessary. Every single letter was denied. The reason given was pre-existing condition not covered under policy. Sophie was born premature. She's had asthma since birth. Under what policy is she supposed to be covered, if not the one her father pays for every month? She pulled out a file. I'm violating about 6 hospital policies right now, but I'm tired of watching children suffer because insurance companies profit from denial. This is Sophie Brennan's file. This is the markup on her ICU stay. She showed the camera an internal document. The hospital charged the family $87,420 for care that cost us $31,000. A 280% markup. Our CEO, who approved this pricing model, took home a $4.2 million bonus last year. Dr. Chen's voice shook. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to heal people, but I've been part of a system that destroys families. I can't stop the system, but I can tell the truth about it. Sophie Brennan deserves to breathe, and her family deserves to do so without bankruptcy. Witness 3. Secured. And the whistleblower they needed. Day 6. Thursday, July 22nd. Shepard compiled everything. Witness testimonies, financial records, legal documents, insurance denials, hospital pricing, Gerald Thompson's eviction pattern. But then he found something that changed everything. Shepard had spent 24 years as a Helena police detective. He knew the difference between a greedy landlord and a criminal enterprise. What he discovered in Gerald Thompson's office files crossed that line. It started with the Martinez family, the previous victims from Unit 5. Mrs. Martinez had insisted they'd never received proper notice. He just showed up one day with a sheriff, she'd said. We thought we had 2 more weeks. Shepard pulled the county eviction records, filed electronically, time-stamped. Then he requested the physical notice that should have been posted on the Martinez's door. The one the sheriff signs and photographs per Montana statute. The photograph showed a notice dated June 3rd. But the electronic filing? June 18th. 15 days later. Someone had backdated the physical notice to make it appear the Martinez family had been warned 2 weeks earlier than they actually were. That wasn't an administrative error. That was fraud. Shepard dug deeper. He pulled eviction records for all 47 families Thompson had evicted over 5 years. He cross-referenced physical notice photos with electronic filing timestamps. 23 cases showed discrepancies. 23 families who'd been evicted with forged or backdated notices. 23 families who'd lost their homes thinking they'd violated lease terms when legally they hadn't. But Shepard kept digging, because 24 years as a cop taught him that someone who commits fraud once commits it everywhere. He pulled Thompson's rental applications, standard forms asking for employment, income, references. Nothing unusual. Except Shepard noticed a pattern in WHO got approved. 7 families approved in the past year. Family. Father recently laid off. Medical debt from wife's surgery. Family 2. Single mother, disabled veteran, VA covering rent. Family, elderly couple, husband with Parkinson's, expensive medications. Family. Couple with credit score damaged by student loan defaults. Family. The Brennans, medical debt. Family Chapter 6. Widower, 68. Social Security income. Prostate cancer treatment. Family 7. Young veteran, PTSD. Receiving disability payments, every single approved tenant in the past year had one thing in common: financial vulnerability. Shepard cross-referenced with rejected applications. Found 6. Two-income households. No debt, 750-plus credit scores. All rejected with vague reasons. Insufficient references, incomplete application. Thompson wasn't just a landlord. He was targeting financially vulnerable people. Approving tenants he knew would struggle. Then evicting them with forged notices when they inevitably fell behind. Then raising rent on the next vulnerable family. It was a system. A machine. Designed to extract maximum profit from people with nowhere else to go. But Shepard needed proof of intent. He needed to prove Thompson knew he was targeting vulnerable people and deliberately forged eviction notices. He got it from an unexpected source. Thompson's property manager, the voice on that phone call Sophie's mother had overheard, was a man named Dennis Kowalski. 43 years old, worked for Thompson for 3 years. Shepard found him at a bar on the east side of Clearwater. "I quit 2 weeks ago," Dennis said. He was drinking whiskey at 2 p.m. His hands shook. "I couldn't do it anymore." "Do what?" "Gerald has a system. He calls it tenant optimization. He only approves applications from people with medical debt, disability income, or recent job loss. He says they're motivated tenants. They'll pay whatever they can until they can't anymore. Then he churns them out and raises the rent." "How does he forge the eviction notices?" Dennis drained his whiskey. "He doesn't do it himself. He has a guy, some paralegal who works at a law office in Billings. The guy backdates documents, forges sheriff signatures, alters timestamps in the county system. Gerald pays him $200 per eviction." "You have proof?" Dennis pulled out his phone, showed Shepard text messages, emails, a spreadsheet Thompson had sent him titled Tenant Life Cycle Management, with columns for Intake Vulnerability Score, Predicted Default Timeline, Optimized Eviction Window, Rent Increase Opportunity. It wasn't just fraud. It was predatory criminal enterprise. "Why are you telling me this?" Shepard asked. "Because 3 months ago, Gerald asked me to process an eviction for Unit 5, the Martinez family. I posted the notice. 2 weeks later, Gerald told me to backdate it. Said they were fighting the eviction, and we needed to show earlier notice. I did it. I forged the date. And 3 days later, I saw their 6-year-old daughter crying in the parking lot while her parents packed their car." Dennis's voice broke. "That little girl asked her mom, 'Where are we sleeping tonight?' And her mom said, 'In the car, baby, just for tonight.' It wasn't just for tonight. They're still in that car. I know because I drive past the Walmart parking lot where they sleep, every day. And I did that to them." He looked at Shepard. "When I heard about Sophie Brennan, the 9-year-old in Unit 7 who saved that biker's kid, I thought, not again. I can't watch another kid pay for what I did, so I quit, and now I'm telling you everything. Do whatever you want with it." Shepard recorded Dennis's testimony, copied the text messages, photographed the spreadsheet. By 6 p.m., he had enough evidence to bury Gerald Thompson, not just as a landlord, as a criminal. He called the Yellowstone County District Attorney, explained what he'd found. By 8 p.m., the DA had opened a criminal investigation. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, racketeering under Montana's organized crime statutes. Gerald Thompson thought he was running a business. He was running a criminal operation that targeted the most vulnerable people in Clearwater and destroyed them for profit. And in less than 24 hours, 215 Hells Angels were about to make sure everyone knew it. But first, Shepard needed to find Thompson's other victims, the adults who'd been crushed by the same machine. By day 5, Shepard had located and interviewed 6 of Thompson's previous eviction victims. Not children. Adults who'd been crushed by the same machine that was destroying the Brennans. Victim 1. Harold Vance, 68 years old, former Army mechanic. Vietnam veteran. Lived in Unit 3 from 2019 to 2023. Harold had prostate cancer. Treatment cost him $83,000 after VA coverage maxed out. He fell 2 months behind on rent. Gerald evicted him with a backdated notice. Harold's belongings were put on the curb while he was at chemotherapy. When Shepard found him, Harold was living in his 1987 Ford F-150, parked behind a storage facility. The cancer was in remission, but Harold had developed pneumonia from sleeping in the truck during winter. He'd lost 47 pounds. "I served this country for 4 years," Harold said. His voice was hollow. "I came home and worked honest jobs for 49 years, and when I got sick, the system threw me away like garbage. Gerald Thompson was just the man who took out the trash." Harold agreed to testify. He had the forged eviction notice. He had medical records showing he'd been at VA hospital the day his belongings were removed. He had proof. Victim 2. Patricia Morgan, 61 years old. Former elementary school teacher. Disabled after car accident. Lived in Unit 8 from 2020-2024. Patricia's disability checks covered rent exactly. Then Thompson raised rent $325 per month. She couldn't pay. Evicted with 30 days' notice that she later proved was actually only 16 days due to backdating. Shepard found her in a women's shelter in Billings, 52 miles away. She'd left Clearwater because the shame of being homeless in the town where she'd taught for 33 years was unbearable. "I taught Gerald Thompson's daughter in 2nd grade, Patricia said. His daughter. I gave her extra help with reading. I stayed after school for her. And 20 years later, her father put me on the street." Patricia had kept every document, every email, every text message. She'd organized them chronologically in a binder labeled "Evidence of My Eviction." She'd been waiting for someone to care. Victim 3. James and Carol Martinez, ages 42 and 39. 6-year-old daughter, Elena. James's colon cancer treatment. $104,000 in debt. Evicted from Unit 5. Living in 2008. Dodge Caravan. But Shepard discovered something the Martinezes didn't know. Gerald Thompson had reported their abandoned property to the county and claimed their security deposit to cover damages. $850. There were no damages. Shepard found the county inspector's report. Unit left in clean condition, minimal wear. Thompson had stolen their deposit, not just evicted them, robbed them. Victim 4. Robert Bobby Chen, 34 years old, Iraq War veteran. Purple Heart recipient. PTSD, receives disability. Bobby had lived in Unit 11. His disability checks were deposited automatically, rent always paid on time. But Bobby had episodes, panic attacks. Once, during a flashback, he'd shouted at 2 a.m. A neighbor complained. Gerald evicted him for disturbing the peace, gave him 14 days' notice, illegal under Montana law for tenants with documented disabilities. Should have been 60 days plus reasonable accommodation discussion. Bobby didn't know his rights. He left quietly. Shepard found him sleeping in his car behind a 7-Eleven. "I fought for this country," Bobby said. "Got blown up in Fallujah. Lost 3 friends. Came home with shrapnel in my leg and nightmares I can't escape. And the same country I bled for? It won't even let me keep a roof over my head." When Shepard told Bobby that Hell's Angels were investigating Thompson, Bobby cried. "I'm a Marine," he said. "Marines don't cry. But maybe someone finally gives a damn." 4 victims. Same landlord. Same criminal pattern. Same targeting of vulnerable adults. That was more than enough for prosecution. Day 7. Friday, July 23rd. 215 motorcycles rolled into Clearwater, Montana at 8 a.m. The rumble started low, distant, like thunder on the horizon. Then it grew into a roar that shook windows and set off car alarms. 215 engines roaring in unison, a deafening, beautiful thunder. They came from 3 chapters, 85 from Billings, 73 from Missoula, 57 from Great Falls, the largest single-location mobilization in Montana Hell's Angels history. Clearwater had a population of 7,200, 9 police officers. 215 bikers temporarily outnumbered law enforcement by a factor of 24-1. They didn't break any laws. They parked legally. They stood peacefully. But they stood everywhere. Outside Gerald Thompson's property management office on Main Street. Outside First Baptist Church. Outside the insurance company's regional office. Outside the hospital billing department. Silent, disciplined, waiting. But then, at 9:47 a.m., everything changed. Hawk's phone buzzed. Text from Lisa Brennan. "He's at our apartment, with the sheriff. Says he's removing our belongings for code violations. Sophie's crying. I don't know what to do." Marcus read the text, looked at Bear. "He's at the Brennan's apartment, right now. Trying to force an illegal eviction while we're sitting here." Bear's jaw tightened. "How many brothers can get to 2914 Cottonwood Drive in 5 minutes?" Scholar pulled up GPS. 14 minutes from here, but we'd be leaving Thompson's office. "We don't need 215 bikers to guard an empty office," Bear said. "We need them to protect a family." Within 90 seconds, 150 motorcycles peeled out of the lot. The sound, 150 Harley-Davidsons roaring to life simultaneously, shook windows 3 blocks away. They arrived at Cottonwood Apartments at 10:04 a.m. Gerald Thompson's truck was parked illegally in front of Unit 7, blocking the fire lane. A Yellowstone County Sheriff's deputy stood on the second-floor walkway, looking uncomfortable. Thompson was at the Brennan's door with a locksmith. Inside the apartment, Lisa Brennan stood with her back against the door. Sophie was behind her, clutching her inhaler, eyes wide with terror. Tom Brennan had been called from work. He was racing home but was still 20 minutes away. "Ma'am, you need to step aside," the deputy said. "Mr. Thompson has a court order." "That's a forged court order," Lisa said. Her voice shook, but she didn't move. "We have a lawyer. We filed an injunction yesterday. You can't do this." Thompson's face was red. "The injunction hearing isn't until Monday. Today is Friday. I have every legal right." That's when the rumble started. Low, distant, growing. Thompson stopped mid-sentence. The deputy's hand moved to his radio. The locksmith looked toward the parking lot entrance. 150 motorcycles rolled into Cottonwood Apartments like a slow-moving thunderstorm. They parked in formation, a perfect semicircle around Building A. Engines idling, not revving, not aggressive, just present. 150 men in leather vests dismounted. They didn't approach. They didn't shout. They simply walked to the base of the stairwell leading to Unit 7 and stood there, silent, arms crossed, waiting. The deputy keyed his radio. Dispatch? I'm going to need backup at Cottonwood Apartments. We have approximately 150 bikers on scene. Are they threatening anyone? The deputy looked at the wall of leather and chrome below him. Not a single biker had moved closer than 15 feet. They weren't blocking access, weren't touching property, weren't violating any law. No, the deputy admitted. They're just standing there. Then there's no crime being committed. Marcus stepped forward, climbed the stairs slowly, stopped 3 steps below the landing where Thompson and the deputy stood. Officer, Marcus said. His voice was calm, respectful. That court order Mr. Thompson is holding was issued based on a notice that we have evidence was backdated. The Yellowstone County DA opened a criminal investigation into Mr. Thompson yesterday afternoon for fraud, forgery, and racketeering. You can call the DA's office to confirm. I have the case number. He held up his phone, showed the deputy a screenshot of an email from the district attorney's office. The deputy read it. His face changed. Mr. Thompson, is this true? That's ridiculous. These bikers are lying. I'm not asking the bikers. I'm asking you. Did the DA's office open an investigation? Thompson's face went from red to pale. I don't know what you're talking about. The deputy looked at the locksmith. Sir, I'm going to need you to stop what you're doing. He looked at Thompson. Mr. Thompson, if there's an active criminal investigation, I can't assist with this eviction until I verify the court order's validity. You're letting them intimidate you. I'm following protocol. You're welcome to call your attorney and refile the eviction request once the DA clarifies the status of the investigation. But I'm not removing anyone from this apartment today. Thompson's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, he looked like he might explode. Then he looked down at the parking lot, at 150 men who hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't done anything illegal, but who also weren't leaving. This isn't over, Thompson said. You're right, Marcus replied. It's not. Because on Monday, when that injunction hearing happens, every single one of these brothers will be in that courtroom. And so will Harold Vance, the 68-year-old veteran you evicted while he was at chemotherapy, and Patricia Morgan, the teacher you put in a shelter, and Bobby Chen, the Marine you illegally evicted for having PTSD, and the DA who's building a criminal case against you. Marcus stepped closer, not threatening, just close enough that Thompson had to look him in the eye. You've been crushing people for 5 years because they couldn't fight back. Sophie Brennan is 9 years old. She has severe asthma, and she saved my son's life. So here's what's different now. She can fight back, because she's got 215 brothers who won't let you crush one more family. Thompson grabbed his locksmith, pushed past Marcus down the stairs. The deputy followed. As Thompson's truck peeled out of the parking lot, the bikers parted silently to let him through. Then they closed ranks again. 150 men, standing in a semicircle around Unit 7. Lisa Brennan opened her apartment door. Sophie stood beside her, still clutching her inhaler. Are they here for us? Sophie whispered. Marcus looked at her. Yeah, kiddo. We're here for you. And we're not leaving until you're safe. The bikers stood there for 6 hours, rotating in shifts, making sure no one approached Unit 7. Making sure Gerald Thompson understood that the days of crushing vulnerable families without consequence were over. At 4:30 p.m., Tom Brennan arrived home from work. When he saw the motorcycles, the wall of leather-clad men, and his wife and daughter safe inside their apartment, he broke down crying on the stairwell. Bear walked up to him, extended his hand. "Mr. Brennan, your daughter saved one of ours, so we're returning the favor. You don't have to fight this alone anymore." Tom shook his hand. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't thank family. You just show up when they need you. That's how it works." While 150 bikers stood guard at Cottonwood Apartments, the remaining 65 at Thompson's office on Main Street attracted news cameras. At 9:17 a.m., Gerald Thompson had arrived at his office. He saw the motorcycles. He saw the men in leather. He saw the news cameras Hawk had called. He tried to walk past them into his building. Shepard stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, we need to talk about your tenants in Unit 7. "I don't have to talk to you. Get off my property. This is a public sidewalk, and we're not leaving until we have a conversation about Sophie Brennan." Thompson's face flushed. "That's between me and my tenants. It's business, nothing personal." "It's personal to a 9-year-old girl who's counting down to homelessness. You're evicting them in 12 days. Why?" "They're behind on rent. I have bills to pay too." Shepard held up documents. "You're evicting them so you can re-rent Unit 7 for $1,275 a month. That's a $325 increase. In 5 years, you've evicted 47 families. You've raised rents an average of $312 per eviction. You've made an extra $112,000 by cycling through struggling families. But that's not even the worst part." He pulled out another document. "You've been targeting families with medical debt. You've been forging eviction notices. You've been running a criminal enterprise. The Yellowstone County DA opened an investigation yesterday. Fraud, forgery, racketeering. You're not a landlord. You're a predator." Thompson looked at the cameras, at the bikers. "I haven't broken any laws." "That's what criminals always say," Shepard replied, "right up until they're in handcuffs." Hawk stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, this live stream has 47,000 viewers right now. Want to explain to them why a 9-year-old girl with asthma apologizes for breathing?" Thompson turned and walked into his office without another word. But the damage was done. By noon, the story had gone viral. "Sophie deserves better" was trending. The hospital CEO issued a statement about reviewing pricing policies. The insurance company claimed they were investigating the denials. More importantly, by 2 p.m., a law office in Billings had contacted Lisa Brennan. Pro bono representation. They'd filed an emergency injunction blocking the eviction pending review. They'd filed a complaint against the insurance company. They'd demanded the hospital adjust the bill to actual cost, not markup. By 5 p.m., the church had called. Pastor Mitchell had resigned. The new interim pastor was personally delivering a check for $12,000, the amount Sophie's family needed to get current on bills and buy medicine. Justice had been served. But justice wasn't the ending. It was only the beginning. Day 10, Monday, July 26th. Sophie sat in Dr. Chen's office, wearing a new purple hoodie, the Girl Scouts logo intact this time, freshly printed. Ace had driven her and Lisa to Billings. Dr. Chen smiled, actually smiled for the first time in months. "Sophie, your lung function test shows improvement. You're responding well to the new medication regimen. How do you feel?" "I can breathe better," Sophie said. Her voice was stronger, less breathy. "I walked up the stairs yesterday and didn't have to stop." "That's because you've been taking your controller medication consistently for the past 9 days." Dr. Chen looked at Lisa. "And you're sleeping better?" Lisa nodded. "I haven't slept through the night in 11 months. Last night I did, because I'm not counting down anymore." Dr. Chen pulled out a box. Inside were 72 purple inhalers. A 6-month supply. These are yours. Donated by a pharmaceutical company that got a very angry phone call from some very persuasive people. No charge. Sophie's eyes widened. 6 months? 6 months. And after that, we'll figure out the next 6. One way or another, you will never run out again. I'm making that promise. Outside the office, Scholar was waiting with a folder. Mrs. Brennan, I've got your resume updated. You're a registered nurse with 7 years of experience. I've got 3 interviews lined up for you next week. All of them offer health insurance on day 1. But Sophie needs me home, during the day, which is why all 3 positions are night shift. Sophie will be asleep. Mr. Brennan works days. Your schedules won't overlap. Lisa's hands shook as she took the folder. You did this in a week? We did this because Sophie saved one of ours. And when someone saves one of ours, we save them back. Day 14, Friday, July 30th. The eviction was officially blocked. Pro bono lawyers had argued that evicting a family due to medical debt-related financial hardship, when the debt itself was caused by predatory hospital pricing, constituted discrimination against disabled persons under the Fair Housing Act. The judge agreed. Preliminary injunction granted. Gerald Thompson would have to prove his eviction was based on legitimate lease violations, not simply wanting to raise the rent. But the real victory came 3 days later. Day 17, Monday, August 2nd. The Yellowstone County District Attorney filed criminal charges against Gerald Thompson. 23 counts of fraud, backdated eviction notices. 23 counts of forgery, altered county documents. 1 count of racketeering, systematic targeting of vulnerable tenants. 6 counts of theft, stolen security deposits. 1 count of conspiracy, paralegal accomplice. Bail set at $150,000. Thompson couldn't make it. The paralegal in Billings, a man named Victor Reese, was arrested the same day. He'd been paid $200 per forged document. Over 3 years, he'd forged 68 eviction notices across 4 counties. He was looking at 32 felony counts. More importantly, the legal team had negotiated a settlement. The hospital agreed to reduce the Brennan's bill from $87,420 to $31,000, the actual cost of care. The payment plan was restructured to $300 per month, manageable on the family's income. The insurance company, facing a class action lawsuit for systemic denial of pre-existing conditions, agreed to cover Sophie's future care retroactive to her ICU admission. They reimbursed the family $12,100. Suddenly, the Brennan family had breathing room, literally and financially. Day 21, Friday, August 6th. Sophie walked into her 4th grade classroom at Clearwater Elementary School. First day of the new school year. She wore her new Girl Scout uniform. She'd re-enrolled. The troop leader had waived all fees when she heard Sophie's story. But more than that, Sophie walked in confident. Medicine in her backpack, stable housing, parents who weren't drowning in impossible choices. Her teacher, Ms. Patterson, asked each student to share something from their summer. Sophie stood. She held up a photograph. This summer I saved someone's life, and then he saved mine. I learned that heroes don't have to be big. They just have to care. After school, Marcus picked her up. Tyler was in the back seat. They were going to the clubhouse for Sophie's official welcome party. When they arrived, 93 bikers were waiting. They'd strung up lights. There was a cake shaped like an inhaler. Dark humor, but Sophie laughed. Each biker had brought a small gift. books, art supplies, a savings bond. One brother, a carpenter, had built Sophie a wooden chest with her name carved on it. Inside were 72 inhalers, the 6-month supply, carefully organized. Bear stood and raised his glass of root beer. Sophie Brennan, you're 9 years old. You have stage 3 asthma. And when you saw someone drowning, you didn't think about your own lungs. You thought about saving a life. That's not just courage. That's character. This club has a rule. We protect our own. Well, you're one of ours now. Honorary little sister. And if anyone, anywhere, ever makes you apologize for breathing again, you call us. We'll remind them why that was a mistake. 93 voices. To Sophie! Sophie, wearing a child-sized leather vest with a patch that read, Honorary Little Sister, Montana Chapter, smiled bigger than Lisa had seen in 11 months. Tyler hugged her. You're my best friend forever. Forever, Sophie agreed. But this story isn't really about a biker rescuing a girl from homelessness. It's about what happens when a system crushes people and expects them to apologize for surviving it. 6 months later, January 15th, Sophie Brennan stood in front of her 4th grade class for her Community Hero presentation. She'd gained back the 9 pounds she'd lost. She made honor roll. She hadn't missed a single day of school due to asthma attacks. Ms. Patterson had asked each student to pick a hero and explain what makes someone heroic. Sophie clicked to her first slide. A photograph of Marcus Reaper Dalton kneeling beside her at Pine Ridge Lake, draping his vest over her shoulders. This is Marcus, Sophie said. Most people see a scary biker when they look at him. I see the man who taught me that protection doesn't always look the way you expect. She clicked to the next slide. Dr. Chen. This is Dr. Chen. She risked her job to tell the truth about how hospitals charge sick kids. She taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is break rules that protect the wrong people. Next slide. Patricia Morgan, the teacher Thompson evicted. This is Mrs. Morgan. She was my mom's teacher when Mom went to Clearwater Elementary. Mr. Thompson evicted her even though she'd taught his daughter. She taught me that even good people can be destroyed by bad systems. Next slide. Harold Vance, the Vietnam veteran. This is Harold. He's a veteran who got sick and lost his home. He taught me that the people who served our country deserve better than living in trucks. Final slide. A mirror. And this is me. I'm 9 years old. I have asthma. And last summer I jumped into cold water to save someone, even though I knew it might stop my breathing. I learned that heroes aren't people who aren't scared. Heroes are people who are terrified and do the right thing anyway. Sophie looked at her classmates. The lesson isn't that bikers saved me. The lesson is that I saved myself first. And then people showed up to make sure I could keep saving myself. The classroom was silent. Then Ms. Patterson started clapping. The whole class joined. After school, Marcus picked Sophie up again. Tyler was in the back seat. They did this 3 days a week now. Marcus had become an unofficial uncle, which meant homework help, ice cream stops, and motorcycle rides around town. How'd the presentation go? Marcus asked. Everyone clapped. Billy Thompson said his dad met you at the courthouse when you were standing with the lawyers. His dad works for the county. He said you and the other bikers didn't leave until the judge made a ruling. We didn't. That's how it works. You stand up for family until the job is done. Sophie looked out the window at Clearwater passing by. Main Street. First Baptist Church, which had a new pastor and a new mission focus. The hospital, which had reduced bills for 47 other families after Sophie's case, exposed the pricing model. Cottonwood Apartments, where the Brennan family still lived. But now Gerald Thompson was in jail awaiting trial, and the property had been placed in receivership. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why did you help? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything." Marcus pulled into the parking lot of the ice cream shop, turned off the engine, looked at Sophie in the rearview mirror. "Kiddo, you jumped into freezing water to save my son. Then you apologized for it. That told me everything I needed to know about who you are. And it told me everything I needed to know about a system that made a 9-year-old feel like breathing was something to apologize for. I helped because you shouldn't have needed help. You should have had medicine. You should have had housing. You should have had a system that worked. But you didn't. So we became your system." Sophie thought about that. "But you can't save everyone." "No," Marcus agreed. "We can't. But we can save the ones in front of us. And we can shine a light on the ones we can't reach, so other people see them too. That hospital changed its pricing policy. 38 families got their bills reduced because of what happened with you. The insurance company is under investigation. They've already reinstated coverage for 62 people they'd denied for pre-existing conditions. And Montana's state legislature is debating a bill to adjust the Medicaid income cliff so families don't get trapped making $200 too much to qualify." He turned around to look at her directly. "You changed policy, Sophie. Not because you're special. Because you were brave when it mattered, and then you let people help you. That combination, courage plus community, that's what changes systems." Tyler piped up. "And you're my best friend. That's important too." Sophie laughed. "That's very important." As they walked into the ice cream shop, Sophie thought about her presentation, about heroes, about systems, about the fact that she had 72 inhalers in a wooden chest at home, her medicine cabinet was full, her family was housed, and her mom had a job with health insurance starting in 2 weeks. She thought about the 11 days, the 19 days, the countdown that had stopped because one person kept a promise. If you've ever felt invisible, remember this. Sophie Brennan was invisible for 11 months. 70 people at a lake saw her struggling to breathe. Church ladies saw her. Neighbors saw her. The system saw her. And they all looked away. Until one Hell's Angel looked at her instead. You don't need 215 motorcycles to change a story. You just need to be the one person who stops counting down and starts standing up. Pay attention when someone struggles. Listen when their voice shakes. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Care enough to intervene even if your voice shakes too. Because somewhere right now, there's another Sophie. Another family counting down. Another impossible choice between medicine and rent, between breathing and shelter. And the scariest looking person in the room might be exactly the protector they need. But here's what Sophie's story also proved. Sometimes the system isn't just broken, it's criminal. Gerald Thompson didn't accidentally evict 47 families. He targeted vulnerable people systematically. He forged legal documents. He stole security deposits. And he would still be doing it if no one had investigated. So when you see someone struggling, don't just offer sympathy. Ask questions. Demand answers. Look for patterns. Because one family in crisis might be an unfortunate situation, but 47 families destroyed by the same landlord? That's not bad luck. That's a crime scene. And sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it wears leather. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Comment below. Have you ever been someone's Hell's Angel, or has someone been yours? Tell us who stood up for you when everyone else looked away. And if you know a family struggling with medical debt, with eviction, with impossible choices, don't just pray for them. Be their Marcus. Be their ace. Be their shepherd. Investigate. document, expose, stand up, show up, speak up. Because Sophie Brennan shouldn't have had to save a stranger's child before someone saved her. But she did. And that's why this story matters. Welcome to Gentle Bikers, where we tell stories about the people the world overlooks and the protectors who refuse to look away. See you in the next one.